Welcome into Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports. I am Tom Downey here with all of the latest rumors around the Bengals. Yes, that actually does include some DeAndre Hopkins conversation, which we'll get into. But first, folks, if you have not already, now is the time to subscribe to our Bengals YouTube channel. Free videos, all off-season, training camp, whatever brief OTAs the Bengals have. It's very few this year. We have you covered with all the latest on the Cincinnati Bengals. Hit that sub button right now for more free Bengals YouTube videos. We begin with DeAndre Hopkins conversation here after the Cardinals cut Hopkins. Late last week, they had been trying to find a trade partner, and in the end, they weren't quite able to do so, I think in large part because of his contract. Hopkins also still allegedly wants a sizable contract after, frankly, his previous deal, which paid him about $20 million per year for the new team, was, I think, a big barrier in why Hopkins did not get traded before the draft, during the draft, or at all. The Cardinals end up cutting him just before June 1st. And there's been some semblance of speculation around the Bengals and Hopkins, but in particular, the money's the big red flag here. The Bengals, as it sits right now, their wide receiver room is actually super cheap. Jamar Chase's new contract can't be paid until next year. T. Higgins has not gotten a new deal yet. So it would be interesting to see Hopkins added to the offense that already features, I think, the best wide receiving core in the NFL. You throw Hopkins in that group, who did miss time last year and in 2021, and that's appealing. From a non-making the roster, balance, salary cap, etc. perspective, there's a lot to like. I mean, how are you going to stop T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Hopkins? It probably means more slot reps for Chase, probably some for Hopkins too. That's really intriguing, right? What is noteworthy is the absence of Joe Burrow on Hopkins' top 5 quarterbacks list. It was in no particular order: Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I'll make note, by the way, 3 of those 3 quarterbacks, those are 3 teams heavily linked to DeAndre Hopkins. Leslie Lamar wanted Hopkins in Baltimore. The Chiefs and Bills actually had trade conversations on him. Justin Herbert, they don't need a receiver in LA, so that one isn't maybe quite as tied into the others. The Eagles, oh boy, imagine A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Hopkins. That's a fun trio, right? There is no Joe Burrow on that list. I think if you're making just a pure best 5 quarterbacks in the game list, and it doesn't include Joe Burrow, you're wrong. There's no way I would not have him in my top 5 at minimum, probably more like top 3, top 2. I think there is some gamesmanship here, by the way, from DeAndre Hopkins. You know, he was asked about Dak. He shook off Dak after allegedly telling people in the offseason he wants to come to Dallas. Cowboys didn't apparently want him, and, well, I think that was more of a I'll break up with you before you break up with me. And maybe the Bengals are in a similar spot for Hopkins because they don't need wide receiver help. They've got a really good 1-2 punch, one of the best in the NFL in T. Higgins, in Jamar Chase. They have Tyler Boyd, which is how you could maybe get Hopkins on this roster, is to do something with Tyler Boyd. We'll get into that. But if the money happened to work, which is a significant if, by the way, and maybe a no altogether because of it. But do you want to add DeAndre Hopkins? S for sign, P for pass. This is today's pinned comment. So if an ad break comes here on the YouTube side of things, take advantage of it. Head down there. S for sign, P for pass. This is where things sit currently on the Bengals roster at wide receiver. You got a great 1-2-3, right? Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Andre Yoshivas, Charlie Jones come in the draft this year. They have veterans, Stanley Morgan, Trent Taylor, Trenton Irwin. So the need for a receiver isn't really there at this stage for the Bengals. But if DeAndre Hopkins would take less to come to Cincinnati and or the market just isn't very good, what you could do is cut or trade Tyler Boyd, and that would free up almost $9 million in salary cap space. Now, I think Boyd fits really well as a mostly slot receiver alongside Chase and Higgins, but if you really want Hopkins, that's how you make it happen. I think you could probably trade Boyd, although I said you could have traded Hopkins, and that one didn't go down too well. The 1,000-yard campaigns from Boyd are probably a thing of the past. In fact, there is some some regression on there, right? The yards have dropped, the catches have dropped every single season. That's in part just the reality of being now the number 3 option with Chase and Higgins in front of him, as opposed to at times even the number 1 receiver for Cincinnati. So if you wanted Hopkins, not saying you do, I think that's how you would go about it. So if you could keep one, assuming the money is equal, who would it be? Or I guess maybe get one in case of Hopkins. Have one is the proper verb. DH for DeAndre Hopkins, TB for Tyler Boyd. Go ahead and sound off for us in the comment section of today's video. Let's stick on offense, go to the offensive line here. The Bengals are trying out a couple different players on the right side of the lines, and I'll call it phase 2 of their off-season workouts. It's not really OTAs yet for Cincinnati. Those won't get going until June, by the way. Head coach Zach Taylor says Jackson Carman is going to get the first shot at right tackle with Lyle Collins, and also Jonah Williams rehabbing right now. So those 2 guys are not present at this stage because they're hurt. They're not ready yet. So leaves a big void at right tackle. And Carman, who subbed in on the left side late last year and looked better than what we saw in his rookie season, is going to get first crack at that role. Now, the small sample size for Jackson Carman last year, less than 175 snaps, 1 sack, a couple hits, hurries, better run grade. Stark difference from what we saw last year. Now, although Carman's getting first shot right now, that doesn't mean he's going to be your right tackle come week 1. And frankly, I don't think the Bengals want him to be. This is how I have it right now. I think left tackle through right guard starters are pretty well set up. It's that right tackle spot in the short term. Jonah Williams is banged up. Lyle Collins is banged up. Cody Ford can probably get some right tackle reps. Hakeem Adeniji, who also got right tackle reps in the playoffs last year, he's an option. Plus Jackson Carman. Dante Smith could probably play some left tackle for you. So there's 3 spots on that right tackle depth chart for us. Well, we just mentioned like 5 or 6 names, so some of them are scattered across at other different positions. But if everybody is healthy, and my apologies, I guess, to Cody Ford, who I just don't think he's that good, pick a right tackle. Who do you want to start come week 1, assuming everyone is healthy? JC for Jackson Carman, JW for Jonah Williams, LC for Lyle Collins, HA for Hakeem Adeniji. Sound off for us in that comment section right now. I know you might be getting a little tired of it, but we're doing it again. Joe Burrow contract conversation. Mike Florio has pitched an interesting idea, which I'll get into why I said interesting. But he laid out a percentage of the salary cap contract for Joe Burrow. Remember, background, Bengals want to pay Burrow. Burrow wants to get paid. They want to figure out the details, the money, the evenness of all that stuff right there. This deal will get done. I am very confident in that. It's just a matter of the timing of when the deal gets done and what the nitty-gritty numbers of the contract end up looking like. But this is going to be a substantial contract for Joe Burrow, and I would say it probably ends up being a record-setting deal when it's all said and done. Now, as for what Mr. Florio has to say on the matter, he says one of these guys is going to get a deal that pays him a percentage of the salary cap, and that's fair. That's the way to do it. You talk about leaving enough money aside for the rest of the team? Okay, let's not talk dollars. Let's talk 16%. I get 16 cents of every dollar, whatever the cap is. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Joe Burrow. And if any owner is going to do it, it's going to be Mike Brown, who's been that contrarian that will do the thing that the league doesn't want him to do, and the league doesn't want teams to do this. My thoughts on this is that this is not a new idea for Mike Florio. Mike Florio pitches this percent of the salary cap contract every time he gets a chance. He did it with Aaron Rodgers. He did it with Josh Allen. He used the exact same line. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. We're just copy-pasting the same explanation and plugging in a new quarterback over and over. By the way, this is not really a team-friendly move. I don't think that it is. It makes it easy from a percent, like a balancing number. You just know what the number is each and every year. But you can restructure that contract every season and keep the cap hit below 16%. Like 16% starts to encroach above, in terms of the cap hit number, top 3 money. Well, you can have it not be top 3 right now. You can structure the deal like the Eagles are doing with Jalen Hurts, like the Browns have done with Deshaun Watson, like the Bills have done, the Cowboys have done. All these teams have kept that number well below 16%. Now, maybe Florio was going off the cuff there, whatever. I think he used to say 12 or 13% of the salary cap, and when last time he made this argument, this claim, etc. But I actually don't view it as team friendly. It's not. You are locking yourself into it in a particular number each and every single year. It helps the quarterback get paid big money, but it doesn't provide the same flexibility of restructuring deals and getting that number much lower. You can structure a Joe Burrow type of contract and not be paying him 16% of the cap in the early stages. In fact, what you should do is have plenty of cash flowing in early, and then later on, backload it from a cap hit perspective so that once he's bad 10 years from now, you eat that big fat cap hit and rebuild and go tank for a new quarterback. Now, if you just want the Joe Burrow deal done already, type me in the comments section. I know I do. I'm sure many of you do as well. So flood the comments section with your me's right now.